through the capital.
Let's get some insight on this from journalist Nabila Ramdani, who specializes in Arab world affairs. What do you make of the public anger we're seeing over the Mubarak verdict?
Well, it seems that the anger which led to people massing massively on Tahrir Square last year at the beginning of the uprising, it's very much seen again on the streets of not only Cairo and Tahrir Square in particular, but across the country as a whole, with other demonstrations who were organized last night when the verdicts were put out by the court in Egypt, but also more demonstrations planned across the country today and indeed in the forthcoming days in between in the days leading to the second round of the elections. So the anger at the Mubarak administration in general is still very much there.
What are they angry about exactly?
I think the anger is directed at many things. First of all, the fact that Mubarak himself avoided execution over his involvement in his lack of ability to protect the life of 900 or so demonstrators in last year's uprising. His very close aide, his former Prime Minister Adli, also was served with a life sentence but avoided execution. And you could see people extremely angry yesterday, shouting that justice hasn't been served, that execution was really what they deserved, and they called the sentence batil, i.e. void. So there was an awful lot of anger towards that. More crucially, there were also 6 top aides in the Mubarak regime which were acquitted. And that is an indication, as far as Egyptians are concerned, that although the head has been removed, the body, the structure of the Mubarak regime is still very much in place. And it's also an indication that the trial was never aimed at getting a full accountability of the Mubarak 30 years of dictatorship, as the trial very much focused on Mubarak's involvement in the crackdown in the first days of the uprising, but didn't at all tackle the charges of vast corruptions, or indeed investigate all the key figures in the Mubarak regime as far as corruption charges are concerned as well, or indeed look into the fact that an awful lot of people in Mubarak's entourage benefited massively from the largesse of his regime, while millions of Egyptians live in poverty. The anger also was triggered by the fact that Mubarak's 2 sons, Ala and Gamal, were acquitted over corruption charges. Again, that is an indication that corruption charges in the Mubarak regime in general are not being taken seriously, and also they are aimed at protecting the security forces, the military in general.
I just want to interrupt you, first of all, because clearly a lot of people would argue that execution is quite severe for corruption. Let's focus on him being accused of killing those 850 protesters. And I want to move on to the elections, because Islamist candidate Mohamed Morsi is trying to capitalize, it seems, on the situation by promising to retry and execute Mubarak if elected. How might that promise sway voters?
Well, first of all, you're quite right to highlight the fact that there are, of course, people demonstrating against Mubarak life sentence, which they see as very lenient. But it also has to be said that there are also commentators and other people who think that the key to a successful revolution is precisely to focus on the rule of law and indeed due process, and execution of Mubarak would be a setback to not only Egypt's revolution, but also to the Arab Spring in general. Surely the key to a successful revolution is not to see Mubarak's tactics being reproduced in a free and democratic Egypt. But the 2 candidates who are now ending up in the second round were swift to capitalize on the verdict. Ahmed Shafiq, who was Mubarak's last prime minister, said that it was a a great day for justice in Egypt because it means that nobody is above the law. Now, this is a man who was very prompt to highlight how proud he was of his ties with the former Mubarak regime earlier in his campaigning. Mohammed Morsi, the Islamist, also said that this was a good day, and indeed that the revolution should continue. And he also promised to retry Mubarak to make sure that he gets an execution sentence, which he deemed more appropriate.
All right, journalist and political analyst Nabila Ramdani talking to us live via broadband from Boston in the U.S. Thanks for your analysis.